Well, Harry called me. He'd always had he has a strong interest in folkloric and mythic events, and I think one of the reasons for that is that he doesn't like, and I don't like either, so that fits, linear narrative all that much.
Right.
And Harry's music is not linear. So I think myth and folklore have always held him, and English folklore, of course. He's done pieces based on that. So I think it was at the back of his mind. When I asked him why Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, he said, typically, I wanted to see what a noble pantomime horse would look like.
And that's the Gawain, the Green Knight coming in.
Yes, the Green Knight coming in on Grigolette.
Yeah.
And that's very typical of Harry, because he has an immensely strong sense of theatre, and it's one of the reasons that it's fantastic to work with him, because I adore theatre. I'm married to an actress, and I love theatre much, much, much more than I love screen. In fact, they're not in the same universe as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, Harry was then working at the National. He was head of music at the National. And he got on the train. He was living in Twickenham, and he got on the train with one of the Sunday papers, The Observer, to read it on the Monday, I suppose. And he came across a review by Peter Porter of a collection I've written, a full-length, I should say, book-long sequence called Mr. Punch. And he said afterwards, Punch caught my eye, sort of sang off the page at me. And he read this review, and Peter Porter, now no longer with us sadly, knew a great deal about music. And he had drawn parallels between Harry's opera, chamber opera, Punch and Judy, and my book.
Oh, great.
So I got a phone call and lifted the phone and said hello, and a voice said, "It's Harry Birtwistle here. Would you like to write an opera with me?" And for a moment, I thought, I don't know anyone.
I'd like an opera like that.
Anyone called Harry Birtwistle. And then I realised, and I think I just said, "That's a very interesting notion. Yes, I'd be very interested to think about writing an opera with you." And he said, "Well, don't you want to know what it's about?"
Yeah, quite.
And I said, "Well, sure." I mean, it just wasn't the first thing I said, you know. So he said, "It's Sir Gawain and the Green Knight," which is, benchmark for any English poet, and extraordinary piece of work in all sorts of ways. So we started talking, and then the usual pattern occurred that had to do with the way it was going to work and the way we were going to work together and so forth, which has never changed.
So you set your collaboration very early then?
Yeah, we seem to have done. And when the Minotaur was about to go on at the Opera House asked me to do a podcast. And I said in the course of that if Harry and I had a dream about the Minotaur, it would be a different version of the same dream. We do tend to think alike. And somebody once said to Harry, why have you worked with David Harsent so many times and only worked with anybody else once? Or I think Stephen Place was twice. And he said, well, he gives me what I want, which doesn't sound all that flattering in a kind of way. But I sort of responded to that by saying, well, actually, he gives me what I want too. And because Harry has never asked me to delete passages, really. I mean, there have been tweaks and so on and so forth, but it's almost always been a matter of more text.
Right.
And that's usually been absolutely inspirational, and it's often had to do with the dramatic movement of the piece.
So tell me a little bit more about how that actually works. You're together, or you're working in the same space?
Well, we know each other pretty well now, and we know pretty much how each other's mind works, and we know what we're going to like.
Yeah.
And even down to the fact that we both like westerns, there's a really great western called Ulana's Raid that Harry and I are quite obsessive about. Anyway, so we started to talk about the piece and trade ideas.
Right.
And I principally was coming up with the ideas because, of course, the music wasn't anywhere close to him at that stage, I don't think. Or maybe it was, I don't know. But in any case, the way that the piece is going to work on stage and what the narrative is going to be, although it's not going to be a linear narrative, what's going to happen, in other words, we talk about that. And we talk about it quite a lot, and we tend to focus on how the piece is going to start. And Harry and I both have this mild obsession with Paul Clay's notion of taking a line for a walk. The notion that the first point you make, the first mark you make on the canvas is what everything must follow from, unless you chuck it away.
Or the same thing with sound, isn't it?
It's the same. It could be a line of poetry. It could be a line of music. It could be, in Clay's case, obviously, it was a drawn line. But that's true. You can throw it away and start again, but you can't. If you're not going to do that, then everything, that first touch, dictates everything. So that we agreed that. Well, with the Minotaur, to give you an example, we both said instinctively we don't want this to be full of people. We don't want eyes across a crowded feast and that sort of thing. And we both, I don't know who came up with the idea. It might have been both of us simultaneously. It might have been one of us saying, "Look, I think this should begin here," and the other one going, "That's what I think." But it was to do with Ariadne on the beach, waiting for the ship to come in that was carrying the.
Do you remember what the line was for Gawain?
No, that's what I'm trying to remember. It was so long ago, it wasn't that long ago. But
because it's a striking opening.
It had to do with the fact that I was from the very outset going to make Morgan Le Fay the engine of the piece.
So you're going to surface her from the original.
So instead
poem.
of as in the poems, she's
the PS.
She barely appears at all, and she's the sort of old crone who is the sort of servant to the woman I called Lady to out dessert, because she doesn't have a name in the poem.
Yes, I know her as the lady.
The lady, but I had to give her a character name, as it were. So, and I wanted them to be on stage from the outset. I wanted them to be, the engine of the piece. I wanted them to be the sort of dark influence, and so on and so forth. So I think it sort of began by saying, okay, there's the Yuletide feast, the Christmas feast, or the New Year, as
hence
it was.
Pantomime, of course.
Yes, well, of course. And I was eager to have a fool, and because of the whole business of the Lord of Misrule and the Celtic New Year starting on Christmas Day and the Lord of Misrule running things and so on, which is extremely close to my heart, nature, compositional thinking.
Yeah, I think
so
that's really
it sort of started there.
That cyclical notion of seasons, feasts, and reiterations or iterations of those feast days is really, really important.
I agree.
In your work, in Birtwistle's work, and in the original poem,
and in the original poem, absolutely. I can't remember at what point this. I think what happened. Well, it was our first collaboration, and I'd never written for the opera stage before, so the Green Knight wasn't the only green thing. I was pretty green myself, but at a certain point, I realised, just as when we were talking about the Minotaur, and we were talking about Ariadne on the beach, and we were talking about the ship with the white sails coming in, and so on and so forth, and that she should be there alone, and that it was not quite a two-hander, but you could see how it could be a two-hander in a smaller theatre. So there was very sharp focus on that. But I was thinking, and Harry and I were both very intrigued by the man in the beast in the man, but I think I was at least as intrigued as Wine Naxos. Okay, so my initial thinking about it included very strongly Wine Naxos, and that's how that sort of corrupt sexual deal between Ariadne and Theseus came about. Okay, well, with Gawain, I think it was the events at Castle Alcazar that really
it's place
intrigued me.
Again.
Yeah.
Same. The attraction or the lure of a particular place or places.
Yeah.
Very much so. The Beast and the Knight.
Yes.
The Green Knight.
Yes.
The whole beheading game as well.
Yes.
The affront, perhaps, to Arthur's court.
Oh, you mean the Green Knight and the Minotaur?
I can see the connections there.
The Minotaur is all too human in the way he dies. But yes, that
Green
beheading.
Knight's a little inhuman as well.
Well, he was, wasn't he? Because I mean, especially in folkloric events or folkloric stories, because the beheading game was quite commonly used, and also the exchange
of kisses as
the exchange of kisses and the exchange kisses for what Bertilac caught in the hunt, and the intriguing fact that Bertilac hunts her a deer which he gives to Gawain in exchange for a doe, is it? Yes. Yeah. So he exchanges. Yes, he gives Gawain, I should say, the deer or the horns or whatever. It's a token, and gets the kiss that his wife has given to Gawain, and then it's a boar.
That's right.
And he gets 2 kisses for that. But then it's a fox.
Sly as a fox.
Which is vermin, and no nobleman would have hunted a fox. So there's the metaphor for what Gawain is about to do, which is to traduce his honour by keeping the sash that she's given him and not handing it over not handing over what he'd gained in Hall to her.
Well, he was a bit compromised, wasn't he, by that, because that detail of the sash or the girdle in the original poem would have given away a little bit too much of what was going on in the castle whilst Bertilac was away hunting, I think.
Yes, absolutely. But it's interesting to wonder what the Gawain poet thought Gawain was in for, was going to gain in Hall, were it not the favours of the lady.
Absolutely.
So it's tokenism. Well, there's a token.
Yeah. Well, you did say that the Green Knight's not the only green thing in the poem, or indeed the opera, but Gawain surely is green as well.
Green.
The whole court is green in the original poem. They're in their first youth. They're young. They're a young court.
Yeah, I'm afraid I rather took against the Arthurian court.
Yeah, well, that's true. That the 20th century take on Gawain is, well, there's a one strong strand that keeps coming through, which is to return the poem, or to amplify the poem's folkloric, mythic, Celtic, and downplay the kind of sophisticated, chivalric, Christian framing of it.
The role I sort of cast them in, because it was the role I cast them in my mind, was as a sort of bunch of beardless boys with shiny armour and a liking for male bonding. But when Gawain comes home, of course, after he has traduced his honour, after he has kept the sash, and returns to the Arthurian court, the other leg of the journey, or the journey home, the circularity of it, he is not the same man. Although the Gawain poet doesn't make much of this, he makes a little of it, but not much. And I made an enormous amount of it, because I saw him as the rotten apple in the barrel, if you like. In other words, he was going to be what Morgan wanted him to be, which was the downfall of the Arthurian court. But at the same time, I saw this as a virtuous thing. I saw it as the wounded healer. Quoting Jung now, but
or the Fisher King,
or the Fisher King.
But
no, I thought rather more, the wounded healer. But Fisher King's quite a big mantle for him to wear, isn't it? But
he couldn't do that.
When he comes back, he says, they all say, you've done wonderful, brave things, and we want to hear about them, and it's a basking in reflected glory thing, isn't it? It'll redound well on the court and so on. And he keeps saying, I'm not that hero. So there was that. I was going to say earlier too that this business about linear or circular narrative, which you just mentioned, is that it's generally thought, I suppose, that the opera requires a narrative, and it requires dialogue, and it requires interaction, it requires exchange, and so forth. Otherwise, where do you get recit and aria from? But not really linear narrative necessarily. Certainly not in my world, and not in Harry's world. But what I think what I wanted to focus on, and what I've always focused on since, and what I will, I suppose, continue to focus on, is what I think opera really needs, which is delineation of character.
Right.
So as long as you can read the characters, you can read the events, and as long as you can read the events, you can see what the story is, even if it's not a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. I quite like things that don't end. I quite like things that aren't tidy.
Chaucer comes to mind, actually.
Well,
He's
yes,
pretty lousy
absolutely.
at endings.
Yeah.
So you like the openness of...
Well,
there is an openness at the end of Gawain and the Green Knight.
Oh, there is. Oh, absolutely.
It's very unclear how to take...
Well, you've got all sorts of things happening. You've got the Arthurian court saying, I've got the members of the Arthurian court, including Baldwin, who Arthur's spiritual advisor, and so therefore spiritual advisor of the court, one assumes, saying, this is all wonderful, this is all, in praise of God, in praise of civilization, in praise of chivalry, in praise of troth, and so forth. And Gawain saying, I'm not that hero, i.e. you've got this wrong.
Yeah.
I'm a damaged person.
Yeah.
And human beings are damaged. So the only person who sees this, all the others say something like, each of them asks him in turn, tell me about brave deeds you've done, tell me about foes you've overcome, and so forth. And he says something back to them, a couple of lines, and then ends with, I'm not that hero. And each of them says something akin to, when you're more yourself. Let's talk again. You've had a dreadful journey.
It's been a bad year.
Not the best of Starbucks was closed. You've had not the best time of year. You've had a fright. So yes, when you are more yourself, we'll speak again. So they expect him to be the person he was, and is just at this moment he is bringing, and this is another crucial aspect of the opera for me. I mean, I made it. It's crucial in my interpretation of it. The world indoors and the world outside.
Yes.
As opposing
Absolutely.
Entities or whatever phenomena. So he's bringing, at that point he comes back, he's shrouded in snow. They're not sure who he is to begin with. He's caked in snow. He's bringing the world outdoors, indoors, just as we do, of course, when we bring in a Christmas tree.
Yes. Yeah.
Few people realise what a pagan thing they're doing when they bring a Christmas tree. So the only person who doesn't say that to him is Guinevere. And Guinevere says, now you are more yourself. We'll speak again. I'm not so sure that that's not overly subtle. I think that's a bit that's a bit green, Harsent green.
So you'd like to make more of Guinevere?
I should have. I think I should have made more. But there
it's interesting the way that you're pulling out the female characters from the original poem and giving them a role that was there, but that needed surfacing very much. And I can see what you because Guinevere and Morgan are. They're opposites.
Oh, she hated.
Yes, I mean, and they sit next to each other. They're opposed in age when Morgan's the aged crone.
Yeah.
Guinevere has that crucial role to play within the Arthur's court.
Yes.
She does make judgments.
Well, one of the reasons that she says that one of the side issues, or the poet does, one of the side issues of the decapitation game is that when his head is struck off, how she could have known this was going to happen, who knows, it rolls under Guinevere's feet. And her notion was that it would cause Guinevere to die of fright. So she did.
Well, it's not a nice thing to have a head rolling across the floor. But they all burst out laughing, actually, in the poem.
Sorry?
They all burst out laughing, of course. I mean, that's that nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all. I mean, it's that kind of. I always think of this as English in another way. I mean, I'm talking about the 14th century poem, but there's a sort of outburst of laughter, and it's embarrassment. I mean, what do you do with a guy whose head rolls across the road and he picks it up and rides out?
To speak.
Come to that matter, what do you do with a guy who rides in on a horse covered all in green? All in green. In the middle of your feast. It's a kind of clash of cultures, isn't there, going on?
Yeah, well.
Or inside and outside.
Inside and outside, yes. It's the green man, of course, to some degree. It's the green man.
Definitely.
The pagan green man coming in. Yeah, the women are crucial in it. And in fact, I'm going back to the Minotaur again just for a moment. When I gave Harry the libretto of the Minotaur, and he read it, and he called me up and he said, "This opera should be called Guinevere." I beg your pardon. Should be called Ariadne.
Yeah. So it's pushing it from the male characters into the female.
I was interested in the Beast and the Man, and I think some of the best lines I wrote were for John Tomlinson. But initially, I hadn't intended to give the Minotaur any lines at all. He was going to be inchoate, or incoherent, or whatever. And then, so I proposed this notion to Harry, and he said, "Well, think about that." And then he called me up and he said, "They've got John Tomlinson for it."
Anyway.
So I said, "Well, they want a line or two then." But I was very interested in Wynaxos, and I was very interested in this corrupt relationship between Ariadne and Theseus. Well, in Gawain, there's the relationship between Gawain and Bertilac's wife.
The lady.
There's also a kind of extended relationship between Gawain and Morgan Le Fay. And the fact that I could get Morgan Le Fay and the lady on stage at the same time as conspirators, but the lady as an uneasy conspirator, because she, in my version, she falls in love with Gawain. So by the time she's tempted him 3 times and been rejected 3 times, because there's nothing like being rejected to make you keener, is there? She's in love with him. So it's a tragedy for her. And in fact, if Gawain has a sort of job to do. Gawain has a kind of psychic, spiritual job to do. Not that I didn't see him as a real character, I did see him as a real character, but it was the sort of, the sadder and wiser man in a sort of way. And though at the end we don't know what's going to happen to him. And there is this schism in the court where Guinevere is saying, I can see something crucial, virtuous and disruptive, destructive in this. And the rest of the court are just simply saying it'll be okay in the morning.
And it's the start of another year, of course.
And it's the start of another year, of course.
So, you don't know what that... And Gawain has that life outside. Did he have to get back on All Souls, or did he get back on... Does he get back on All Souls? I think...
I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Because there's this business of the 25th of December being the start of the new year.
I always get... it depends where you count.
So it depends how you count back, yeah.
Because, those feast days are all folded in, because it's whether you have the old year or the new year is one of the issues. And then there's the Feast of the Circumcision, which is, I think, another version of cutting off and castration that's playing into the poem. And then you have the return, the eighth day.
Yes.
So you've got a number of days that you can work with.
Yes.
There's another character in the poem, or figure in the poem, isn't there, as Mary, the Virgin Mary.
Oh, on the inside of the shield. Of course.
Yes,
Gawain's shield, well, you know this, but has a pentacle on the front and the image of Our Lady on the
inner and outer again.
Sorry, that sounded so possessive. I'm not Catholic, but anyway. Yes, the Virgin on the inside of the shield, and the pentacle, of course, is the seamless knot.
Yes, the endless knot.
And that's when things start happening in fives, the 5 wounds of Christ.
Yes.
The five joys of Mary, and so on and so forth. So 5 was very important. It's not like 7 and 9 are important numbers now, but 5 was an important number.
3 and 5, I think.
3 and 5.
3 always.
Yeah, that's right.
5 in this
still
poem.
is 3. Still is. Of course.
Yes.
I mean, A, because of the Trinity, but B, because it's just rhythmically perfect.
Yeah, and
the rule of 3 in writing is rhythmically perfect.
And when you're thinking, you always need a third thing.
Yes.
And if you're doing 2 things, you need a third thing by which to come.
Actually, if you analyse most jokes, they are 3-part structures.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, I hate the whole idea of 3-part structures, but because it's a
structure of an
so
argument.
Doctrinal, in screen work, and I did some screen work. The 3-act structure sort of became doctrinal. Then it became a 5-act structure, even worse. But yes, that is important.
It's quite complex in terms of. I don't want to call it number symbolism, because it's not number symbolism, because those 3s, those 5s, the inner and outer, those 2s, the doubling, they can't be reduced to numbers. They're ways of dramatising issues that the narrative wants to, or thematise.
They're ways of seeing the world.
Yes,
in point of fact, that's what they are. They're ways of interpreting the world.
Yeah.
Which is why 7 and 9 are so crucial to us. 9 is. I just wrote a poem about this called MAD 1971. 1971 was the year I was given of the Queen's. It was Carol Ann Duffy commissioned me to write this book. And I noticed that 1971, if you add the digits, adds up to 9. But of course, if you multiply any number by 9, any number at all, and then add the digits at the end, it will reduce to 9.
Right, that's right.
And
what does the MAD stand for in 1971?
Mutually Assured Destruction. Remember 1971? Thick of the Cold War.
Yes.
Yeah. So that I mean, and I don't think that number is necessarily completely divorceable from that story.
No, I'm not saying that.
I think number lies, it's like Shakespeare's sonnets. I mean, number's crucial to Shakespeare's sonnets.
It's just not reducible to numbers. Numbers are they're always thematising or working things out for us, symbolising or ways of ordering and structuring the world, as you put it, and keeping the world open at the end of the opera and the poem, in fact.
Yeah.
In terms of that cyclical structure that appealed to you so much appeals to you because it has a way of opening up.
Absolutely.
Up to other possibilities.
Now that you've said that, it causes me to think, and perhaps I knew this when I was doing it, but I wrote my last book, collection called Night, has a very long poem elsewhere.
It's a fabulous,
and
it's a fabulous collection.
It's a circular story. It's a quest, and I'm interested in quest, and Gawain is a quest, and to some extent the Minotaur is a quest. And the piece I'm working on with Harry at the moment, The Cure, which is it's a moment in the Medea myth when he asks her to rejuvenate Jason's father so that he can join in the celebrations when the Golden Fleece comes back. Also has a kind of circularity about it because in a sense it itself is backstory to the Euripidean play, and at the end of the Euripidean play she goes off in a chariot drawn by dragons to escape her fate, which has been sent to her by her aunt.
It's another witch, isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Well, Medea is a witch, of course.
Yes.
Morgan's a witch.
Yeah.
And when Medea escapes her fate in the when Medea escapes her fate in the play by Euripides.
Very good. Sorry.
Circe sends her aunt, who's a witch, sends a chariot drawn by dragons to whisk her off. Well, in the opera that Harry and I are working on at the moment, in order to gather the herbs to make a potion to rejuvenate Jason, exactly the same. Circe sends a chariot drawn by dragons, and she whips off around the world collecting herbs. That's
what witches should always do.
A root cutter. So there's a circularity there, and indeed it's open-ended. It's open-ended.
I mean, that's in the structure of Arthurian stories and in Celtic myth as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the Greek classical connection as well, in some ways, because all these stories recall and intersect with other stories.
Yes.
So all stories in the Arthurian myths start with Arthur in a court, and something's going to happen, and that's the quest, right?
Yeah.
And you thread your way through the stories by the named characters that you're following, whether it be Gawain or Guinevere or so. And the same with the Celtic stories, I think, very much so.
Yes, I wrote while we were working on Gawain, which was about a 3-year undertaking, I think. I wrote a poem which I dedicated to Harry, a little sequence called Storybook Hero, which
should write that one down.
is very much about a quest, but it's couched in slightly modern terms.
What's the appeal of quest? It's very quickly reduced,
journey.
Just the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole business of elsewhere.
Yeah.
You
or the other world.
The other world, and being in the world outside in Gawain is endlessly hostile. I mean, bulls, bears, wadwoes, and so on.
It's horrible North Cheshire, probably.
Italians from the high hills. Yes, that's right. Well, I've been to Ludd's Chapel.
Right.
My wife's father.
You went and visited before or during or
during.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went on your quest.
He said, "I found the." I said, "Well, it's Ludd's Chapel," but there's this. It's just this. It's exactly as the poet describes, as a cleft in a rock and rather crudely hewn by the weather, of course, and dripping with moss, and there it is. That's what it is. But he uses this word. But one of the things when I remember was the fact that although the Gawain poet wrote in alliterative verse, not in rhyming lines, and although it was a dialect of the Northwest Midlands, probably Cheshire or wherever else it would have been. Nonetheless, there are recognisable, even for somebody like myself who doesn't read Middle English that well. He says it was Nobbut, an old cave. Nobbut, wonderful.
Nobbut.
I mean, that's
now, but
current, now,
yeah.
But I've heard people say
yes, absolutely, and it just comes out all of a sudden. He'll lift it, like that the original poet will.
But of course, he wasn't writing verse that would have been easily read in London or easily read.
Well,
at
there's
London
an
Court,
argument
really.
about that because of think about Langland and Piers Plowman writing in alliterative verse in.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it wasn't. I suppose what I'm saying, but I think times have moved on, and given the fact that it was alliterative, not rhyming lines, and given the fact that it was in this must have been near to impenetrable dialect.
Yeah,
don't you think?
I wonder if it's like London are now trying to, understand a Glaswegian living in the centre of. I'm not sure about that, to tell you the truth, because I think there's enough movement in the period.
Yeah.
It certainly is marked as a dialect.
I'm saying
it's not court English in that way.
It wasn't court English, and it wasn't pitched for that.
No.
Although he might well
may
have been in
been pitched
London.
for a court, but it might not have been pitched for the London.
Isn't there some
court.
sort of theory that he might have lived in the house of a merchant that came from his neck of the woods?
Well, there's a lot of theories about him, but it is. I mean, another way of thinking about the alliterative long line. I mean, it is an old form. It has an ancestry. It is associated with Arthurian materials.
Yeah.
It's technically interesting.
Yeah.
It can be
when
used
were rhyme
for
lines being written in the
but
13th century, weren't they?
Yeah, rhyme was available. Rhyme was available to Anglo-Saxon poets, and they just chose not to rhyme, not to end rhyme.
Not to end
I mean,
rhyme.
alliteration is assonance in a sense.
Yeah.
So,
either side of the caesura.
Yes.
But no,
yeah.
I meant.
And then you've got the
end
wheel
rhyme,
and the bob at the end of each.
Yes, the bob and wheel.
Stanza.
Absolutely impossible, of course. That's
I
why.
was going to say, come on, let's talk about the technical appeal of the poem to a poet. I think must be really interesting.
Oh, yeah, enormously. I love the way he rang the changes there.
Yeah.
But of course, uninterpretable in operatic terms.
Yes.
There was almost nothing from the poem that I could use because there were almost no exchanges. They're all reported.
I know. They're all just in the description.
There were moments I could put into somebody's. I mean that night after night near dead from the sleet. Sleet. He slept in his irons. Between naked rocks. Sure, I've misquoted stone there, but nonetheless, that's roughly speaking it. So I was able to give that to. But the principle. Well, there are two things. One is you have to write for the stage. So if you're writing for the opera stage, it's no different in one sense from writing for the dramatic stage. You need to invest your characters with human qualities. You need to move them around the stage to begin with.
And through the year in this case.
Yeah, and through the year. Well, that was kind of much more ritualistic and so on and so forth. But and you have to give them, the things have to be visible. The motive has to be visible. And if it's not going to be in what they say, I mean, Shakespeare did it all the time with the sides. But if it's not going to be what they say, what they sing in this case, because what they sing, if they're a soprano, might not be all that clear. I mean, I sat next to Michael Tippett on the first night of Gawain, and we had the full opera for that production. There's a chamber ending, and there's the ending of the first act. I'm talking about now, where this massive turning of the seasons event goes on.
He shortened that in the later.
Yeah, we had to because
it was too long, too big. Was
well,
it?
the band were in overtime.
Okay. It always boils down to money in the end. But that's interesting because it's a whole fit in the original poem, isn't it?
It's a whole fit, yeah.
So I can see what was going on there was that you really wanted to, and both of you or the opera wanted to register that.
But I was interested to do it a different way. I was interested to see what it would look like with a chamber ending because the what's happening on stage is actually repetitious. The music isn't repetitious. It's close to being repetitious, but it's not. And although I did quite like what was happening, because the arming of Gawain and the washing of Gawain, purification, armour on, that kind of thing was going on at the same time. And I thought that quite worked. You've got Murray Angel and Liz Lawrence in a couple of big blue circles in the Flyers, singing the turning of the seasons. So you've got a lyric soprano and a mezzo up there singing, and they sang for about 22 minutes. I mean, on and off. And I don't know how many pages of my libretto it was, but quite a few. And then down came the curtain, and Michael Tippett turned to me and said, "You can never understand the Sopranos, darling." And I thought, yeah, you can't. And there'd been a fight about whether or not we would have surtitles.
Well, that was going to be my question.
Yeah, okay. Well, Di Trevis, who directed the piece, it was my copyright. So Jeremy Isaacs said, "I'd like to have surtitle board up, but it's kind of up to you because it's your copyright, it's your text." So I thought, well, I should talk to the director about this because a producer, they're known as in opera terms. So I talked to Di Trevis about it, and she said, it's against the spirit of theatre that we're trying to create. And I thought, I haven't got the first idea what that means.
Yeah,
but it sounded impressive to me.
Okay.
So I said to Jeremy,
given how common surtitles are.
Well, they are, no, but you see, there was an issue here, which was that we would be surtitling in English, an opera sung in English to an English audience. That had never happened before.
Of course, yes.
E&O had been surtitling in English and doing English
you're quite right.
but it's a different thing.
Yeah.
So, and the Opera House had never surtitled to an English audience an opera sung in English.
Big cultural
It was
shift.
an event.
Yeah.
It was something of a cultural shift. So I said to Jeremy, well, it's against the spirit of theatre that we're trying to create. And he said, well, I think you're wrong. And I said, okay, well, tough luck. So then Harry and I did a study day at the Royal College of Music, and about 8 people asked us whether or not we were going to have surtitles, and if not, why not? And I said, this is Jeremy Isaacs has got a clack in, but he may well have done. Anyway, I have to say, Jeremy ever happens to see this interview, he was absolutely right, and I was completely wrong. But again, I was being green. I didn't know enough. I'd never had a stage play produced, so although I'd written
was this your
drama
first opera?
for the screen,
It
was
was
my
your
first opera.
That's really important.
And although I'd written drama for the screen, I had no experience of stage.
Right.
So I don't think I did too badly, all in all. It was a main stage piece of the Royal Opera House, but
it's a good day.
so I did a lot of deferring, because I thought I don't really know what she means, but I'm sure it's been said before, Anyway, on that first night, I just found Jeremy Isaacs in the crush bar and said, surtitles now, because I knew what they were singing and I couldn't, I'd written it and I wasn't sure about it, and a lot of the time, and Penny Walmsley Clark, who sang Guinevere, is a high soprano, so I really felt that a good deal of the dramatic movement was being lost,
right.
And that's what a surtitle board is for.
Yes.
So you know what's going on. I don't care whether
it allows them to read and listen at the same time, so they can do.
I don't think it's perfect by any manner of means.
No.
If you're at the Opera House, you want to be sitting in the front row of the dress circle to get the best of it. And I can see it's a problem. And some opera houses have it in the back of the seat.
That's right.
So there's a bit of this going on.
Yeah.
Some German houses have it at either side in a sort of pillar or something of that kind. It's far from perfect, but if you think that the narrative, chunks of the narrative are falling down a hole, if it's I don't care whether Bohème is surtitled or not, because everyone probably there are some people who don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with somebody seeing Traviata or Bohème or any 19th century opera for the first time. There's not.
I wonder if there's a case for surtitling Shakespeare more these days, actually. I was listening to you thinking
glosses.
No, I was just thinking about it, because in some ways, a lot of Shakespearean English is as difficult as Middle English.
Yeah, but it's because it's being sung. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. I'm just transferring.
Oh, I see. You're transferring. Yeah. No, I don't think I want. I don't think I want surtitled glosses.
Maybe we should get Shakespeare sung. Maybe that would help.
Well,
Tom
Abbott has done that, of course.
Yes. Yeah. That first night, tell me one moment where you really thought, I nailed that, as opposed to one moment where I thought, we need the subtitles.
Well, I thought a lot of it got nailed. And although I've just been slightly rude about Di Trevis, there were other things that she absolutely did, along with Alison Chitty, that she did marvellously well. And two of the things, it started with the whole Arthurian court coming up on the scissor lift with the burning. Yeah. The entry of the Green Knight was fantastic behind those enormous doors. Of course, on the occasion in which the doors wouldn't open and the scissor lift wasn't working, there was a problem, but nonetheless. But it was incredibly dramatic, and it worked wonderfully. And the head, which was made by Spitting Image, when it wasn't John, it was two little people, one standing on the other's shoulders, held up the head, and it sang. It was just startling piece of real
and
coup de
deeply
théâtre.
uncanny as well.
Yeah,
I think.
it was.
Yeah.
And I thought the fact that their movement on stage when they were in court and so on and so forth wasn't natural. It wasn't casual. They walked the pentangle. They, it was
So again,
systematic in that kind of a
that's
way.
the stateliness of the verse in a strange sort of way.
Yeah.
It came back to that. So,
but everything meant something. I mean, everything had a sort of,
yeah.
everything had a kind of emotional equivalent.
Yes.
And I thought that was terrific. I thought that the journey was terrific, and the way that the little figure at the back, kept coming into to, as it were, I don't know, be a metaphor for the journey, and the journey then going to take place. I liked the arming. I thought what the 16 did was absolutely wonderful. I thought
Many of these are the big set pieces from the original poem. So
Yes,
though you
they
couldn't, and quite rightly couldn't and wouldn't want to mimic the verse of in a sense, what happened was that you were obviously inspired by and visual and put into visual theatre as well as song theatre, into sound.
Well, I mean, the poem itself is enormously
kinship.
dramatic.
Yeah, it is. It's
a
fantastic.
very, very dramatic poem.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
It begs out to be performed.
Yeah, it does. And it's not just a narration. It's not just an account.
Yeah.
There are these massive set pieces, and there's such.
And the castle itself, which is, that whole is another fantastic moment. It's almost like virtuosic.
The way they did time passing, I thought was really interesting, because that was Le Richard Heure, wasn't it? Yeah. So that wonderful Trerisha, and that wonderful manuscript and so on, which compared to the Gawain manuscript, which is a grubby little thing.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it is always a big disappointment to me. I sent my students off to it. It's in the British Library. It's
in the library.
It's on public display. And we teach them this fabulous poem, and then the undergraduates, they trot down the road and come back saying, well...
Yeah, I know.
A grubby little manuscript that's actually quotable.
Yes.
I think that's a brilliant insight. It has crude illustrations.
Yes, it does.
But they are deeply crude.
They are,
and
yes.
belie the sophistication of the poet who produced them.
The
We call the
one
poet.
One of the lady tickling his beard while he lies in bed, and he looks as if he's in this sort of fabric coffin.
Yes.
It's quite extraordinary. And I mean, she's no beauty, and and he looks about 96. And
I know. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No, it
But so I think using a book of hours, the Le Trerisha, is a really, really good idea, because that sumptuousness.
Yeah, you'd have thought we'd at least have the medieval equivalent of a Moleskine or something.
Yeah, but they don't. They don't. But a lot of the vernacular poetry is quite plain. I mean, even the Canterbury Tales. I mean, I know we have that famous illustration of the illumination of Chaucer on his horse, but there really aren't. They're nothing to the great Psalters or books of hours of the Middle Ages, where that all the cultural capital is invested in that.
Of course, the piece I'm working on with her at the moment, The Cure, this Medea thing, first appears, I think, in Ovid, but then in Gower. So
you're with Chaucer's mate.
Chaucer's mucker.
Yeah.
Because there is in which section? Confessio Amantis, I can't remember which. I ought to, because I'm supposed to be doing favours of commissioning me to do a new version.
A new version of the Confessio.
Yeah.
That's an interesting challenge.
Yeah. I shall, to use a technical term, bugger it up slightly.
Why?
I mean,
you'll have to
mess it about. Yeah, I'll have to. Otherwise, it will be 33.
This is explain about the poem. I mean,
Confessio Amantis, John Gower. It's a poem of 33,000 lines, or something of that kind.
Embedded short tale narratives again.
Yes. Basically, it's the 7 deadly sins is what it is. But his confessor, Genius, who was given to him by with the goddess
Amans.
I can't remember, gives it to him. It's a long time since I turned my attention to this because I've been doing other things. But anyway, challenges him with whether or not he's been sinful in this way or that. And he says, I promise you I'll tell you the truth. Sometimes he says, I've been a wee bit sinful. Sometimes he says, I've not been sinful at all. But then what genius then does is uses examples from literary history.
I think it's a long time since I've read it cover to cover. I have to say, or line one to the end. I tend to go to it too for some of those particular embedded narratives.
Well, the Medea story.
Is that one of them?
Yeah,
I should go back and look at that.
I'll tell you what happened. Harry called me up and he said, I found this poem in an anthology and it's in Old English, so I can't read it, but you'll be able to. And I said, can you read any of it, Harry? And he said, some of it. I said, then it's in Middle English.
That's a compliment to me. Thank you, because I do read Old English. Good on you. Good on you.
So he sent me, and what it was a very, very old anthology. He got it from the British Library or somewhere. No, he could, London Library perhaps. And, or he just found it. And it was one of those anthologies where poets of note choose poems that they themselves think fine. And somebody, I can't remember who it was now, had chosen this little chunk of Confessio, which is where Medea goes out to gather herbs to make a potion to rejuvenate Aeson.
Yeah.
And it's about sonnet length, a bit longer maybe.
Interesting.
And so I said, I know what this is, but I can't. I'd have to drag Confessio down off the shelf and also have a look at Terence Tiller. Terence Tiller did a rather dull, truncated translation of, because I don't read Middle English at all fluently.
There's a nice Middle English something texts. Teams. I've got a very. I can recommend you.
Oh, really?
Good updated edition. It's quite useful.
Well, if Faber's offer me an interpreter, I'll be in touch.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful. I'd love to work on that.
Simon Armitage had that for Gawain. He has somebody looking over his shoulder, and you say, "Well, what's this work?" Yeah. No, not checking. Sort of interpreting.
Really?
Yeah, because Gower's quite dense.
Gower's difficult. Yeah. I mean, it's not so much interpreting. It's you'd need a conversation. It would be an act of collaboration, a bit like what you have with Birtwistle, I think.
Well, I might say, produce me a literal version, and I'll make a mess of it from now on in.
You can make your own mess. Don't make mess of mine.
No. You give me the literal version. I would then.
I think you'd be interested to do that. I mean, what I particularly like about the work that we've been discussing today of yours is the way that it roots quite naturally the great classics through the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where that comes from. I mean, is that in your educational background, or is it?
No.
Or is it found, or it's very much a thing that's happening now. The medieval is sort of beginning to haunt.
Yes, I don't know. Since I'm no medievalist, that's for sure. But quite why it's been. I mean, of course, composers come to librettists, largely speaking, with notions of what they want to do.
I was going to say, Birtwistle's obviously there in a sense as well.
I've worked with other composers, but there's only been one occasion on which a composer said to me, let's do something. I've got a commission. Let's think about doing something. And it was a very good piece of wonderful composer called Hugh Watkins, who's also an incredibly good pianist, and who I knew bizarrely because Harry and I had done a piece called The Woman and the Hare, which was commissioned from the National Ensemble, and Hugh's brother Paul was the cellist.
Okay.
Anyway,
small world.
And so I said, well, yes, I have got an idea of something I'd like to do. So we talked about that. Didn't suit Hugh. So then he said, I really like the work of Thomas Hardy. So actually,
so you just went
there
off.
was a swerve was going on. So we talked about Hardy and what we'd both read of Hardy.
The poetry or the prose?
And we said the prose, a short story, and we settled on that.
Yeah.
So yes, it's usually that way around. So if there's an impulse here, then it's Harry's.
And you're responding to it.
And I'm responding to that, but I'm not responding to it with any difficulty. I mean, that whole world indoors, world outside thing. Actually, I mean, if you look at Gawain in one sense, it's a Jungian myth.
Yeah.
It's
You can
Jungian.
use-
It's doctrinally
Well,
Jungian.
It's
you
also
know.
doctrinally Christian in some ways, so
Yes,
that's
of
very
course.
interesting.
But the damage,
Yes,
the
yeah,
wounded wounder,
yeah,
and all of
yeah.
that. Yes, the Fisher King and the way that relates to the sacrifice of Christ
Okay.
and so on, and other symbols of that sort, the pelican and so on. But looked at in one sense, that libretto is a Jungian myth as well as being all the other things that you correctly say it is. Christian parallels and other sorts of, but pre-Christian fact, literary fact. So the notion of the wounded wounder and the notion of individuation, what Jung refers to as individuation, really, is sort of there, I think, lurking behind it.
Yeah.
And the notion of destroying something to make it whole, or destroying something to make it able to reform, and so on.
Explain to me what individuation means to you, because it's a term that quite Jungians use a lot.
They do.
And
they
I'm
do.
wondering, and I think it would be helpful for this audience to have a sense of it.
I take it to be coming into a sense of self,
Right.
which is an informed
Yes.
sense of self.
Yes.
Is a spiritual understanding
Yeah.
of self.
Yeah, he's grown up by the end of the poem. And I think in some senses that's true. In order to grow up or to be mature means to be
Well, he puts
aware
on,
of your faults.
Yeah, what he's aware of, and what in a sense he puts on when he comes home, when he comes back to the court, he is wearing this vast overcoat robe which is smothered in snow, but underneath that, what he's put on is, in Jungian terms, shadow. So, he's admitted his shadow side, and what it seemed to me that the Arthurian court could never admit was its shadow side. It shone. It was brilliant.
Yes.
It reflected
Yes.
only itself.
Especially the way it's presented in that poem. Yes. And the circularity of it, them all sitting around the so-called round table, and
Yes.
Arthur in his.
But somebody endowed them with a round table. Who was that? So that there would be no precedence.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've forgotten who it was, but it's a very late notion, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's
Yeah.
much after the Arthurian
Yes.
tales.
I mean, we had a round table, but
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with that.
Talk to me. As you talk about the opera and about the poem, you seem to naturally gravitate towards Gawain, as well as Morgan Le Fay, Morgana, and the Lady and Guinevere.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked much about the Green Knight, other than the splendour of his beheading, the wonder of his horse, the magnificence of the singing head, which is deeply, a wonderfully theatrical and actually psychologically compelling moment as well. I think.
Yeah.
But tell me how
Well,
you
I
think
think I sort of.
about the Green Knight and Sir Bertilac, his
Yes.
other side. I mean,
I saw the Green Knight pretty much as a kind of cat's paw. Morgan, who can shapeshift, has shapeshifted him. He's enthralled to her. The lady's enthralled to her. She can do with them as she will. In the opera, she's clearly in control.
much more so than in the original.
But she
film.
has this. She has this idée fixe. She has. She draws a straight line from where she is to what she wants. The lady is uncertain. The lady is, human. She's troubled. She falls in love.
She's looking
big
for
mistake,
love.
and so on. Bertilac is, I think, much the same. He is a cat's paw. He's being used by her. She shifts him.
So he's more of a. He's in her agency. Which is almost the opposite of the
yes,
phone.
exactly. And the exchange game is something he does quite openly and quite knowingly. Gawain, one sort of feels, is clever enough to respond to that. Gawain understands about games. He understands because of the court.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And so he understands about games because games go on all the time in the court. He understands about the exchange game, and he can see what she's asking for. She can see that she's asking to share his bed, and he knows that he can't allow that to happen because Trauth, won't permit that. He'd be
which
insulting.
makes you think that if he wasn't bound by Trauth, that he would actually, but he would be violating yet another.
Yes.
Well, it's not a game; it's a convention, isn't it? That if you're you don't take everything the host has
That's
to
right.
offer
That's
quite
right.
as literally
Yes.
as Birtwistle is offering.
My house
it.
is yours and everything
Yes.
in it is yours.
Yes,
And
but
he
you
says
don't
that.
take the wife.
No, Birtwistle says that.
Yes,
but he's obviously
exactly.
obviously putting temptation in
Yes,
Gawain's
well,
way,
both of them.
and he's
Yeah,
doing that because
yeah,
Morgan's
yeah,
instructed
yeah.
him to do that.
Yeah.
So it's part of the deal that he does that. Now Gawain might not be, I think, quite sure at the outset, what's happening, but he can see that she's trying to seduce him or get him to seduce her. And since we must assume that she's not the spitting image of the woman in the illustration,
Well, she's very seductive in the poem.
she is very seductive.
Yeah.
She's very
She
seductive in
slips
my
in.
opera.
Yes,
she is very seductive.
she is.
She
Absolutely.
says, my
Yes.
husband's out. Nobody
Yeah.
will disturb
Yes,
us.
Yes, she slips.
Here's my
in.
body. Do what you want
Yes,
with it.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
Gawain can sense that there's a deeper, darker
Yeah.
game being played
Yeah,
here
yeah.
than a simple exchange
Yeah.
of tokens.
Yeah.
And because he's clever, because he's good at this, because he's a member of the court, and because it's it's a pastime and so on and so forth, he manages very cleverly to talk himself out of it. And he does talk himself out of it. But when he first gets there, she says, well, now we'll discover something of courtly love. Everyone knows
Yes,
about Gawain's
yes. Everyone knows,
reputation
yes, as a ladies' man.
as a ladies' man,
Yeah.
and as a courtly person. She doesn't say as a seducer, but she says,
Oh, it's true that he has a.
is-
There is that sense that he's arriving in a slightly provincial court,
yes,
away from
Yeah.
and there is that sense of let's see what this guy's up to.
yes.
Let's see what we can do.
Let's see
with
what he's
him.
good at.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Very much so.
Yeah, yeah.
So you just explained to me brilliantly why the original poem is called. The editorial title is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Yes, yes.
But the opera is called Gawain.
It's called Gawain.
Because you're focusing, and the opera focuses, and the music, in a sense, focuses in and out
Yes.
on
It wasn't
Gawain.
my title, actually. I think it was Harry's title.
Was it Harry's? Well, he's
he said,
obviously
should we call
smart.
it Gawain? And I said, well, as long as
Yeah.
you don't put an exclamation mark after it, then it'll be fine.